Everyone. This is the MongoDB Online Certification Study Group, the English version. Why English version? Because an hour ago we've done the Spanish version, and in the future we will be, for other certification exams, we'll probably be dividing it even in other languages, and perhaps dividing it a little bit over the topics for DBA and developers. Today, what we are going to be looking at is a little bit, I'll try to explain you well the structure of the exam, the topics that we are going to cover, a sample of the questions that you might be expecting or you should be expecting, a little bit the rules and the procedures that will require to get you certified. We'll have as well a quiz that I would like you guys to answer so we can also analyze where you guys are having a little bit more trouble and probably reinforce or make better or more explainable, let's say, the topics around the documentation or even our own books and reference material. So really like you guys to submit the quizzes as you will finish. And then if we have enough time, because this is an hour session, I'll open the mic to everyone so you can express your questions. Feel free to post anything on the chat room or even to interrupt me by unmuting yourselves and making the question. If you have questions, please do share it, because the good thing about having a collective room of people going through these sessions is for us all to share a little bit the questions that we might have that might be influencing everyone around in the for the exam. So the certification exam is built to not only recognize you as an expert developer in MongoDB, and also to make sure that you guys have a way of recognizing amongst your peers that you are actually aware and you know what MongoDB is and you are professionals at working with the technology. This said, it's not an extreme difficult exam. It is meant to be able. It is meant so that you, if you have some experience with MongoDB working it on a day-to-day basis, or you have personal taste for MongoDB and you actually been through the different aspects of the technology, or if you've been through our online educational programs or educational on the different languages, for example, Node.js courses or the Java courses or DB courses, you should be able to pass with flying colors through the exam. Now, the exam itself, for us to authenticate and validate that who you are the person you claim to be, we will request an official government identification at the beginning of the exam. This needs to be something like a driving license, a national ID, a passport, something like that. Something with the picture so we can validate the person. Obviously, if you are very good looking, you'll have extra points on it. So make sure you have, let's make sure that we all are okay. So for the exam, we will be recording computer activity, audio and video. This is to make sure that you are alone in the room, you don't have a peer answering, for example, and that you follow the rules around the materials and references that are allowed. You are not allowed to navigate to websites apart from the exam one. You are not allowed to have any kind of dictionary or similar translation tools. So for you, the English native speaking people or the very illiterate in English, there shouldn't be any problem. But for some other people which have not their native English, perhaps this might be a little bit of a small issue, but the questions and the answers are being designed so you can go straight forward through it. So I've been seeing a little bit in the chat some activities saying there is no sound. Can you guys hear me a little bit, or is it just a couple of people that can't? Okay, a lot of you can. So if you guys are hearing static instead of my beautiful voice, be no mistake, there's a little bit of problem probably in the connectivity. In any case, we'll try to fix it as we go. Okay, getting back to the exam structure. So you're not allowed to have other navigation on the websites apart from the exam one. There's no internet or dictionary or similar translation tools. Reference material like books, notes, and all, those are not allowed as well. You're also not allowed to have radio, TV, headsets, and something like that, or mobile phones around you. And yes, obviously, it's an individual exam, so no peer answering. Sorry. The question structure is around multiple choice questions, where some will be one correct choice, some will be multiple correct choices. Those will be identified by that. You will have a maximum. Some of the questions will be, give me the two ones that are good, give me all the ones that apply, but only within a 5 answers possible range, and you're only going to be at a maximum of 3 correct ones. So we don't want it to be extremely complicated with 20 different options when only 2 apply. That's not the idea. The exam will take between 60 to 70 questions, and you should account for more or less 1.5 minutes per question. You have 90 minutes to complete it. You should have enough time to do it very, very well. I totally recommend you to have a nice read into the questions, take your time, make sure that you fully understand the question, and you won't have any problem answering, I'm pretty sure. A few amount of them will require you to express some kind of syntax or instruction of some kind. Please, if you can, mute yourself, hearing my own voice, which might sound nice, but it's not. So thank you so much. A few amount of these questions will be requiring you to express a query, will express an insert statement or creation of an index or some database command. Those will be not the vast majority of them, but you still will be required to answer some of those questions in that format, so free text format kind of questions. So which topics are we going to cover? We have 2 certification exams going on. There's a developer one where the question or the topics that we can cover are the following: the fundamentals, the CRUD, indexation part, aggregation framework, data model in schema design, replication at conceptual level, and sharding as well in conceptual level. For the DBA part, we will have as well the fundamentals. We will have the CRUD and aggregation, would be a simplified version of the developer one. Obviously, we'll inside some questions around indexation, and we'll have replication and sharding at mechanical level. I'll explain exactly where the difference stands. Obviously, some questions around administration, like backups, restore, and sizing, and a few others around server administration, monitoring, and troubleshooting. So Gautam is asking, will there be questions needs lots of syntax remembering? My worst fear. Don't have no fear, Gautam. This will be straightforward questions around very straightforward answering. And if Shannon is on the chat room, he will be answering some of your chat questions as well. So feel free to push them in. If I missed some Shannon probably will be answering those. The differences here between the DBA and developer for the replication part and sharding is that on the developer part, we'll be asking you questions around things like, if I'm doing this kind of query with this read preference, what does it affect my replication, or how does it affect my queryability? What is replication there for? Can I read from secondaries? Can I do certain operations just as secondaries? Those kinds of questions, not necessarily how we replicate. The same thing for sharding. We'll be asked, like, what is a good shard key? How should I express my queries so I can benefit from a shard cluster? What kind of operations will be impacted by a bad shard key or a good shard key? On the DBA part, we will be asking questions around the mechanics, how to set a replication, how to set up delayed replicas, how to check the uplog size, how can we see how far are my replicas from my primary. The same thing for sharding in terms of mechanics. How can I add a new shard? How can I set the shard key? What is a good shard key rules, or which characteristics make a good shard key? All of those things will be a little bit distinct between the two exams, but they will be covering the aspects where the developer needs to focus a little bit more and the DBA will focus a little bit more. On this presentation, since we didn't do a separate clear division between the developer questions and DBA questions, we'll mix them a little bit, but so you guys can all have a feeling of what is coming in the exam. So let's jump right into the sample of some sample questions that you might be, well, you might face. On the data modeling, for example, well, the benefits of MongoDB for representing one-to-many relationships include which of the following? And here we ask you to check all that apply. In many situations, it's better to model your data so that while there is a random IO operation, seeks, and so on, for each parent entity, the data for children is read sequentially. Second option is avoid storing relations by embedding into a single document one-to-many relationships. And the third option is you can keep the entities in separate collections, but still query and aggregate them together. So in this kind of query, we need to understand, in this kind of question, we need to understand mostly what is the benefits of MongoDB in terms of representing the one-to-many relationships. And in this situation, the only one that does not apply is the last one, where basically it's implying that you will be able to do joins of separate collections under the same query, which is not possible in MongoDB, as we all know. It's much better to do the storing of the relationship by embedding into a single document on one-to-many relationships. And obviously, when we have multiple seeks or random IO around the documents themselves, it's better to embed them all together, the children with their parent. We will also have questions around indexation. And those questions will be, some of them will be mechanical, some of them will be as well for optimizing queries, some of them will be as well for making sure that we understand the explained patterns of the indexation. So for example, given the following document where ID equals 1, A is composed by B and C, where B equals 1, C equals 10, can we achieve covered queries using the following index, where we're going to be having an index on A.B ascending? The possible answers are no, you cannot achieve covered queries on MongoDB. Yes, if you restrict the filter fields to A and B, so you will be doing the query and restricting the fields to a filter. And no, because you can only do covered queries on root level fields. Now, I want to ask you guys, do you know or are you acquainted with covered queries? If you are acquainted with covered queries, then you are fine. If you're not acquainted with covered queries, it's basically covered queries allow you to express queries that do not need to go down to the database file to retrieve the information. You will only need to use the index itself, the structure of the index, to collect the information needed. So by filtering, like in B, by filtering out ID equals 0 and A.B equals 1, so just exposing that in on the response, you could have the inclination to say yes if you restrict the filter fields to A and B. But actually, the right answer is the last one. No, because you can only do covered queries on root level fields. Okay, this is something that you should be aware of. You can only do queries at root level fields. Covered queries, sorry, at root level fields. Replication operations. We will do a bunch of replication operations. For DBAs, will be a little bit more mechanical. For developers, they will be around how to deal with them. One of the examples of questions that we might ask is, mark of which of the following statements are correct for delayed replica nodes. I can run backup operations on delayed replicas. In the second option, in the case of failover, delayed replicas can assure primary roles. In the third option, delayed replicas prevent application data corruption. So as some of you are already saying, 1 and 3 are correct. And it looks like 1 and 3, 1 and 1. That's all correct except 2. Okay. So why? Well, if I have a delayed replica, I'll probably will not. Well, probably no. I will not allow that replica to become a primary. Why is that so? Because delayed replica basically means that I will be delayed in time, so I'm only going to replicate data which is older than X amount of seconds. If I would allow that to happen, I'll be using a primary node with old data. I do not want that. So by default, if I set a slave delay on a replica set, on a replica node, the priority will become 0 and it will become hidden. Very well, Rory. That's exactly correct. Questions around as well fundamentals. Whenever, for example, we will be asking questions around the baseline fundamentals of MongoDB. How do we scale? How do we replicate information? How do we organize data internally? Which kind of data types we are using? Those kinds of things are the ones we are looking at when we talk about the fundamentals. And the fundamentals, for example, is something like this. Whenever I want to scale my read operations, I should, only one applies, use read preference secondary, deploy more replica nodes, add shard nodes, add MongoS nodes, add arbiters. So one needs to be a little bit careful around here, because some of these options might hint that those are the correct ones, but only one here is actually correct. And the vast majority of you that are typing in the chat the answers are actually correct. It's number 3, add shard nodes. We can have some scale on the reads by deploying more replica nodes, or even using read preference secondary, but at a cost of delayed consistency. Now, if I want to maintain all the reads of my application consistent, and I do not want to go through the effort of, my application does not allow me to have inconsistent or delayed consistent reads, then I definitely need to shard the system. It's the only way to balance correctly the scalability of writes and reads as well. So that would be the correct answer for this particular question. And do not forget one thing: the idea around replica sets is for us to have high availability. That's their main function. It's not to scale reads. We allow scalability, some sort of scalability of reads at a cost. As long as you are okay with that, you can use it. If you're not, and your application generally might not be, then you should then shard to scale the reads as well. Now, I have a quiz ready for you guys. I'll be posting this into the chat over here, and I would like to go through it with you guys so we can understand. So this will be a small sample of the type of questions that we're going to have in the exam. Now, let me share this with you guys in the screen. Hopefully you can see it as well. Okay, I'm going to put it a little bit bigger. And I'll appreciate if you guys can answer in all of those questions. Those are 20 questions more or less. It is a little sample of questions that might be asked during the exam. And what we will do is take 5 minutes to go through all of them. I'll let you guys go through all of them, answer as much as you like, and then after those 5 minutes, I'll come back and go through them with you guys, and we'll go through the answers of them. So I'll shut up for 5 minutes. I'll let you guys think about the correct answers. Please submit them at the end, and we will then review it all together. Okay, gentlemen, so for the sake of time as well, 5 minutes are up. Hopefully you guys have been able to complete the full amount of questions. So, but let's review them all together so we can have a better understanding of what is requested here. So in the index part, we start with the first question where from the given list, which kind of indexes are possible to create on MongoDB? Function-based index, full-text index, or hash-based index? On this particular, the only one that we do not support at the moment at MongoDB is function-based index. So the ones that are actually allowed are the ones full text and hashed. Now this question comes in line with the previous one that we already seen in the samples. Is it possible to use covered queries? Yes, in any field. No, it's not possible to create covered indexes in MongoDB. Yes, but only on root level fields. Well, the correct answer will be yes, but only on root level fields, as we've seen before. Can we have different indexes on different replica nodes? Well, there are 3 options here. Yes, because MongoDB does not replicate all operations. Yes, we can create individual indexes per replica. No, that is not possible because everything is replicated. Now, in this particular question, what I'm interested in is yes, we can create indexes per replica. This comes with a process, means that we need to bring down the node that we want to create that specific index on and create that index on that particular node individually. So meaning that if we have a node which belongs to replica sets, we generally start it up with REPL set and tell the replica set name, ABC, for example. If we want to bring it as a standalone, we just need to remove that option from the command line or from the configuration file and raise that instance as a standalone node, and then we can operate there. We can create indexes, we can remove data, we can create databases, and so on. And that data those instructions will not be replicated because at that moment we are operating on the node level, not on the replica set level. Then we can bring it up back into the replica set, and things will operate exactly the same way. This is particularly handy for example, situations where we need full text search indexation or a particular index over a data set that we want to only do queries related with analytical workload or with reporting workload that in general are not the same that we need to do with our operational database. So Vinay is asking, what is the use case when we will have different indexes on different replica sets? Well, full text search indexes are one. We probably don't need to have a primary which is constantly indexing on full text search. We probably are okay with having a separate node just delivering that workload, or for analytical and reporting processes. We might not want to endure a big amount of indexes just to do reporting. We probably want to keep our primaries just as with the minimal amount of indexes to support our operational workload, and keep on some separate indexes just for reporting and analytics. Alex Leong is asking, can we drop replica indexes to resolve replica set lag? By default, no, because you'll have replication lag mostly, and this is not in all cases obviously, but mostly because you have saturated in primaries or your log percentage is too high and you need to segregate the load according with different primaries, that's usually the first reason or the main reason why you have replication lag. But obviously, if your secondary nodes are very, very slow machines or with very low resources, and having a primary or an extra indexes would slow down their replication, it might be helping. But in general, the replication lag is generally bounded to the saturation or the overloading of a primary, not so much with the replicas themselves. But obviously, if the nodes are not good enough or not powerful enough, then you can also run into those situations. Well, Rory is asking what happens if the replica node becomes primary after, say, a failover. Well, nothing happens. What can possibly occur is that your writes will be slower because you have an extra index to update. For every single write that you do in your primary, you used to have 3 indexes, for example, now you have 4 or 5. In those situations, that the throughput might be slower a little bit, and you have much more index to update. But apart from that, in terms of operational wise, nothing will happen. Nothing dramatic will happen. Bates is asking, does the question not assume that the node is part of the replica set? Sounds confusing. It probably is a little bit confusing, but let's come from the standpoint that those do belong to a replica set. We are in a replica set, and we want to create different indexes on different replicas. Then we need to bring them down, raise them as standalone, create the indexes, and then bring them back again to our replica set. Okay, but yes, we will revise that question. No problem. Vijay is asking question 3. Mechanism is a unique feature in MongoDB over NoSQL. We use it and works good. Great, Vijay. So thanks for sharing that experience with the rest of the colleagues. It's really, really worth it. CRUD. So for a given data sets where we have those 3 documents, A equals 1, ID 0, C equals 100, A equals 10, ID 1, and B equals 20, ID 2, C equals 95. If one expresses the following query, db.collection find where A equals type 2, which document or documents does MongoDB return? Well, MongoDB has this nice operator called $type that allows us to query based on the data type represented in the document. The different types, we do not expect you guys to know them all, but so as your reference, some of them might be useful to understand exactly what the type represents. So I should share with you guys the manual reference for the BSON types that we support. And number 2 is a string. So basically, we are looking for is this A equals 1 as a string and not as a numeric value. For the previous data sets, please type the expression to update all documents that value A or B is greater than 5 and set C increment by 100. So what I want here is for you guys to express the query or the statement, the update statement that will perform this transformation. So it will be something like db.collection.update, where in all the updates, we need to give it the filter or the query part, where you're going to say that we want A or B is greater than 5. So we can go as literally as the expression says and ask for a OR operator, pass it on the different OR statements that we want. Like, for example, A is greater than 5 and B is greater than 5. And this will be our query part. Now, for the transformation part, the update part, we will need to increment the value of C by 100. And this will be our incremental part. And then if we are operating this from the shell, we can say multi equals true, since the expression says update all documents. If we only operate the instruction without the multi, we only will be updating one document per instruction by default. Any questions so far, guys? Please just throw them into the chat. Commands return the information of the database file size. db.serverStatus, db.stats, db.collection.status. I lost you guys on chat, perhaps due to the overloading of the chat room. But please type it in, and then I'll look into your questions if you have some. Or if you want to, you can unmute yourself and just barge in, no problem. So in this case, the correct answer would be db.serverStatus and db.stats. Both of these commands will give us information on a db.file size. Question number 7, what is the command to shard a collection? Well, I give you here 3 options: db.enable sharding, sh shard collection with the collection name and the key, and sh.enable sharding. Well, in this one, the correct one will be sh.shard collection. db.enable sharding does not exist. Don't let yourself confused. In sh enable sharding, it's the command that we operate at database level to enable a database to be partitioned. So the correct one would be sh.shard collection, giving it the full collection name, the namespace, and the key that we want to shard the collection on. In terms of aggregation, the question I'm asking here is, which of the following expressions is not an aggregation stage? Well, we have all these options: group, sort, filter, and limit. The only one that is not a stage on the aggregation command is filter. The rest of the stages are, in fact, possible and are part of the aggregation framework. What option can I use to avoid in-memory sorting? Now, this is a advanced question that we do that will basically, if you get this answered correctly, you are my man, because this is not an obvious question. Basically, the answer that I'm looking for is allow disk use. And this operation you can find here on the manual. I'm going to share with you guys, which is the operation that allows us to avoid in-memory sorting. And basically, you will use the disk to do the sorting of an operation of the aggregation framework. The 10th question is, where should I place the match stage of my aggregation pipeline? Well, the 3 options are first element, always before group, or last element. Well, in all cases, we should always strive for having match as the first element of our aggregation pipeline. This will reduce the scope of the query, of the operations and the computations that we need to do during the aggregation framework, and will be much more selective. Everything that's selective should be in the first stages of the aggregation framework. Jonathan is asking, of course, this begs the question, why would you ever want to avoid in-memory sorting? Well, in-memory there's always limitations around memory in-memory sorting, by the way. You cannot have more than 100 megabytes of a single aggregation plan to execute to occupy more than 100 megabytes of memory. This is a limitation meant to be there to avoid overlapping in concurrent aggregation jobs to basically disturb each other. So you shouldn't as well overreach the memory footprint for a single operation. You should also be conservative about it because MongoDB uses memory effectively and in a greedy way even. So we use a lot of memory, especially to place all our data set. If we keep on paging in and paging out information, we'll be probably hurting other operations and benefiting a little bit more the aggregation framework that probably we don't want to do. So be careful about that. If you have a big data set that you want to strive through and you want to do aggregation on top of it, and then we want to sort it, you can only do it till 100 megabytes. If you need more and if absolutely necessary, you should definitely do the sort in file and not in memory. If there is a performance penalty in just letting MongoDB figure it out, well, this is how we do it. If you occupy more than 100 megabytes, we will evict that job, and if you don't allow the disk usage, obviously. Alex is asking, doesn't covered indexes ensure data is returned in index order, hence no sort is necessary? Well, that's correct, as long as you have an index that you can use. So imagine all those aggregation pipeline jobs that you are sorting on something that you do not have an index to cover your query. So therefore, you will have a problem. So moving on to replica sets, how many failover nodes do I have with the 5-node replica set where one is an arbiter? So in these cases, my question to you guys, does the fact that one of the members of that replica set, the fact that it's an arbiter, does that influence on the failover nodes? Obviously, this is not a rhetorical question, it's an actual question. So no, it does not influence the failover. The arbiters are there to assure a majority in all cases, especially for failover across different data centers. We might want to have some instance on Amazon or some cloud provider or whatever, just to make sure we have fully data center availability across different data centers. So what are the number of failovers for a 5-node replica set? It's basically 2. We can lose up to 2 nodes with having no problem whatsoever on availability of nodes, of service, basically. Which steps are necessary to create a replica set? Well, all replica sets require one thing, that when we are initializing them or we are adding them up to a replica set, they all have to have the REPL set pointing to which replica set we want to use. So we need ---- REPL set option on the command line, or we need the REPL set equals something on the configuration file. Both of these questions, the answers will be correct as a first step. As a second step, you will need to area rs.initiate and tell the system a configuration of all the replicas that compose that replica set. Those are the 2 commands that I'll be looking for. Now I have a question from David. 1.11, we removed the arbiter because it's not a data-bearing node. That leaves us with 4 nodes, which means that we have 3 secondary nodes. So I will have answered 3. Well, yes, you'll have 3 secondary nodes, but only 2 failovers. You could only lose 2 nodes effectively. If you lose the third, you'll be having a replica set of 5 nodes with 3 members down, means that you don't have a majority, therefore you cannot elect a primary, and therefore you only have 2 failovers. Okay? Our creation of replica sets, question from Cheyenne. Creation of a replica set part of the DBA or developer exam. This is going to be on the DBA exam. There you go. Thank you, Shannon. Majority, obviously, and that's it. So let's move forward. Question number 13. Please order the steps for a 5-node replica set backup. Well, here I put it 5-node replica set backup, but it actually could have be in any replica set at all, no matter how many members it would have. So first of all, for a correct point in time in latest as possible backup, what we need to do is do primary step down as the first instruction. Then we should probably secondary stop or basically remove it from the sets. Not truly necessary, but in general, you should go through this way. You should copy your data by doing a dump or a MongoDB export or just doing a snapshot, a disk LVM snapshot, whatever you want to do, it's okay. And then obviously you should restart the node or put it back into the replica set. In terms of sharding, which of the following aspects make a good shard key? Is it randomness, alphanumeric nature, uniqueness, monotonic growing keys, or its cardinality? Which are the things that we should be looking for to establish a good shard key? Now, one of them is if we have randomness, great. You will always have a good shard key if as much random as possible. If it is uniqueness, if the shard key is unique, even better. So we can establish a good distribution if we have a unique key. This comes in handy with the cardinality as well. We should aim for as much cardinality as possible. Obviously, if it's unique, the cardinality is exactly the same amount as the number of documents that we have, so that will be great. We should definitely avoid monotonic growing keys. That is not a characteristic that makes it a good shard key. And alphanumeric is pretty irrelevant. We could use any data type for the shard keys. So alphanumeric, it's generally the biggest amount of the data that we have in the database. It's alphanumeric nature, but it's not necessarily a good indicator of a good shard key. It's just reality of the data type. Before I go further, there's a couple questions here that I want to address. Why should we step down on the previous questions? Well, if from that list of instructions, if we have a primary step down, this will assure us that we're going to have a copy or a backup of the most active or the latest version of our data. So we should aim for that. That's the only reason why it's there. Joe mentions that none of the videos in the class ever stated anything about stepping down the primary. Well, it's not necessary to have that to do a backup, but if you do want to have the latest version of your data, the only good or the only accurate way to do it is to have a step down of the node, of the primary node. So moving forward, would alphanumeric be part of the answer? No, alphanumeric would not be part of the answer. It's not something that's mandatory for a good shard key. Okay, question 13. Should we have step 1.5 ensure that secondaries have lag 0? Very good one, Alex. Actually, what we should be doing is doing a step down, rs.step down of the primary with the timeouts. For example, this. And this will ensure us that if there's no secondary available to become a primary, so if there's no secondary with the latest copy of the data or most up to date, it will not step down completely, so we wouldn't be able to do the complete procedure. So yes, absolutely. Ensure that the secondaries have 0 lag or are up to date with the primary. That's definitely a good way to do it. Okay, number 15. We should shard when we want to scale writes, we want to upgrade our server, we run out of disk space, or we want to scale the reads. Well, we definitely want to shard when we want to scale up the reads. We've seen that before. We definitely want to scale out for writes then we use sharding. if we want to upgrade our server, that's not the best way to add up a shard or shard collection. That's nothing to do with that operation. And if we run out of disk, we should have sharded already. So running out of space should not be a condition to shard. It should be something we want to avoid by sharding. So be careful about that. Might be intuitive that you might be having the hint to set that in. We shouldn't run out of space. Actually, if we want to shard the system, it is to avoid running out of disk space. And as guest, I don't know what your name is mentioning, you actually need space to shard. You actually will require some space to shard. The good metric or our best practices indicate that if you run into 80% of your disk capacity full, you should be having already your shard nodes allocated, or at least the hardware being prepared to add up to support that shard, the sharding exercise, because sharding itself will also need some space. Thank you, Valerie. So please describe the backing up of a shard cluster. Well, this is a little bit of an open question. This is mostly related with DBA stuff, but I want to go through it with you guys. So the first step of the process of backing up a sharded cluster should be always stop balancing. We want to avoid migrations being occurring in between different shards when we're going to do a backup. We want to be having everything frozen and not moving around data or chunks across different shards. The second step would be to back up your config server. Now, the config server have some of the most important pieces of information of your shard. They will tell you the distribution and the location of the chunks and shards and which databases and which collections and how are they shard. So it's critical that we keep that as a second step for our backup. The third step is just basically, back up your shards. And this is the same process that you will have for any replication or for any backup of a replica set. Either you can go to the primary, step it down, and back up from there, or you can just use a secondary and back up that. We definitely recommend you to go through the full process of stepping down a primary and so on, so you can have a freshest copy of data, but you can avoid it as well if you're comfortable with the lag that occurs between your secondaries. Fourth step is to make sure that your config servers are all up and running. You have all three configs. And fifth step is to enable balancing again. So do not forget that last piece of the puzzle, because if you forget to reset the balancing, you will have a distribution issue. The chunks will not be starting to move anymore. You will probably gonna running into problems of saturated shards. So be careful about that. Don't forget that. I've seen a lot of people forgetting about that last step. In questions so far, so for partial correct open questions, we are 1 to 3 points awarded. As Shannon was mentioning, no partial credit. How many questions do we need to answer correctly for passing the exam? I'll let Shannon answer that because I think it's around 65% of the full amount of questions. Administration part, number 17. MongoStat gives us metrics of the nodes of a cluster, which operation are taking longer, information about the logs. Here, the right answer is metrics of the nodes of a cluster. If you guys are not acquainted with MongoStat, MongoStat is a tool that we provide with a distribution of MongoDB that allows us to get for the user to have statistics, real-time statistics of what is happening in the cluster. Now, this is similar to VMstat or IOStat, those utility tools that you are usually acquainted with. across the Linux environments that allow you to give you some information of how your disk are behaving, your memory are behaving. The same thing for MongoDB, but with a different name called MongoStat. Just put it in the chat, the documentation link for that tool and that utility. So please tell me what's the process to evaluate a slow query. So what I'm interested in here is to understand your thought process on trying to achieve how do we deal with a slow query. First of all, we need to look into the logs and analyze which one of them, which ones are being marked or logged as slow. By default, MongoDB, anything that is above 100 milliseconds will be marked in the logs as a slow query. You can set it up for a lower level or upper level according with your SLAs, but all queries by default will be logged into, if they span out more than 100 milliseconds, they will be marked in the logs. So look in the logs for those slow queries. Second is to review the recurrency, or how recurrent are those queries. It might be one developer running one query once. It might be something that happens from time to time that just does a report in the middle of the night and actually needs to go through a lot of time to complete. So having a slow query marked in your system does not necessarily mean that it's bad. It just means that it happened. If it's highly recurrent, or if it's something that comes from the application and it shouldn't be taking more than 100 milliseconds, then you definitely should be looking into that. And the third step will be to run an explain operation on that query to analyze what is going wrong, what we need to do to fix it. If it's an index, which we need to add up to the system, if it is a better index with better selectivity, if we need to refactor that index or reindex that structure, or if there's some issue with a query where the instructions or the operations that we are, or the commands that we are sending are basically not going to be using any index whatsoever. So those things are the ones that will allow us to optimize our system. This is a typical question that can happen in the DBA part. Which of the following commands can we run to debug what's happening in MongoDB? Well, for options here, monitor with MS, raise the log level, set the profiling on, or do nothing. Well, as the questions, we want to know the commands. The two commands will be raise the log level and set profiling on. Monitoring with MMS, it's a great way to have information of how the system is working, and probably we're going to have alerts of something which is going wrong. To debug and to analyze exactly what is going on, you need to raise the log level and set the profiling of the system. Okay. Alex's question 18, is there only one standard answer for this question? Well, these three steps need to exist. Otherwise, you will not be able to analyze what's going on with a slow query. You might not need to reach out to third to run the explain if you only had one slow query that happened once and it's needed to be slow. But in general, this should be the steps you should undertake for that. Question number 20, the final one. Which of the following commands should I use to change the slow query value? Well, all of these are options that we are enabling the system, but the one that allow us to set a different value apart from the 100 milliseconds, it's set profiling level. I'll be sharing with you guys through the chat the command instruction documentation page. Here it goes. Here you can find all the information for that particular command. It will basically ask you a profiling level, because between 0, 1, and 2, and a new value or a updated value for the slow MS or slow MS value, which is basically the time in milliseconds which you consider a slow query. Now, I'll request your name, company, city, town, country, and email address. Those questions are not typical from the certification exam, but I'm pretty sure you guys can answer them very, very quickly and correctly. We will be analyzing later on the answers that you provide, so we can understand exactly where probably we need to update our documentation or make a better effort of explaining things more interestingly. We ran out of time. I still have some time to answer any of your questions concerning the exam and certification. Please type them in. I'll be here for a bit of a few 5 minutes. In the meantime, if you have other types of questions that you haven't occurred to you right now, or you want to discuss it with me, please feel free to just use either my Twitter handler or my email to submit any kind of questions that you might have. Okay? So what's the exam pass rate? Shannon will probably tell you it's a 65% approval rate on the questions. Barry's asking, will it be possible to have another samples, please? Well, at the moment, I can share these with you. Probably in the future, we'll have a different set of questions, but at the moment, no. At the moment, those are the sample questions that we have available. Alex, is the same exam showing the expected ratio of multi-choice questions, open questions? No, this has been some questions that I've come up with. They do not express the exact ratio by which they will happen. Those will be a little more diverse. Sorry. The number of the ratio basically of the multi-choice to the open questions, it's higher than the one that I exposed here. So you will have more multi-choice questions than open questions than the ones that I put in the survey. I just wanted to have a good mix of DBA and developer, open questions and multi-choice questions as well. Are all questions equally weighted? I will ask Shannon to share some light on that one, because I honestly do not know. Do you have paid practice tests online? We do not at the moment, as I think we don't. So I'm pretty sure we don't. So, but we might think about that. I will contact. Well, thank you, Joe. Please feel free to contact me. Unique across the DB or collection, the underscore ID. The underscore ID is assured to be unique across a collection. You can have multiple underscore ID or the same underscore ID across different collections on the same database. Can we get to know what are the questions we got right and not? I will check that, VJ, not sure. How many questions did I have? The test between 60 and 70. C. Lopez Motos. Gautam, feel very uncomfortable without going through the practice test. Don't worry, you will do fine, Gautam. Don't feel uncomfortable. This will be very straightforward. How many people that take the process? Well, I don't know the approval rate, and I don't know if we want to disclose that. But in any case, don't feel terrified by it. You should be able to go through it, no problem. The session will be recorded, and you will have a copy of the session very soon on your inboxes. All right, guys, I'm going to take off. As I'm sharing with you my contacts, good luck for the exam. I'm pretty sure that you guys are all going to rock and roll at it. And let me know if you have any other further questions. Thank you so much.